my gosh, thank you so much, everybody. This is a packed house. Wow. I am so impressed by this. I think we're going to go ahead and start. My name is Meg Cabot, by the way. I am the moderator of today's panel. I've never gotten to moderate before, so I feel so happy to be doing this, just because I love new things. So I'm also an author, and I'm just so excited to be with these amazing authors who I'm going to introduce, I think, right now. And the first one that we have sitting right here is Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey has written many books, and I have read. I just want to say, I know you're here about your new book, but I didn't get that one in time. I read a very steamy one about some police officers who were doing things I'm pretty sure they were not supposed to be doing. And I just want to say, good for you. Okay. But the book that we are here, I think that we're going to talk about is called Fix Her Up. It's the first book in a new series, Hot and Hammered. Good for you again. It's very cute. I like I said, I haven't read it. Actually, it won't come out till June 11th, I think? June 11th. Okay. So this is Tessa. Next we have Alexis Daria. Did I say that right?
That's me. That's
oh, shoot, I'm going down my list. You guys sat in the wrong places. Okay. Mia Sosa. That's right. And your book, I believe that your newest book is Crashing Into Her,
correct,
which is the final book in the Love on Q series.
Standalone.
Oh, it's a standalone. Okay, I'm so sorry.
No, it is the final in the series, but it works as a standalone.
Once again, very hot. But funny. These are actually funny books. I mean, these are rom-coms, and very, very lovely. Thank you for the entertaining hours in my bathtub. Number 3 right here we have, I'm right? This is Amanda Heger.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you guys have read it, Crazy Stupid Love. Yes, you have some fans out there. Adorable. It's a first book, yeah, right? Not your first book, the first book in the Let's Get Mythical series. Very fun, adorable. And then we have Alexis Daria. Okay, I don't know if you guys have read the Dance Off series. I read Take the Lead, and I don't watch Dancing with the Stars, but I'm going to now. Okay, that was very fun. And next we have Abby Jiminez. Did I say that right?
You nailed it.
Thank you. And have you got any other books out? Is this your first one?
Novel.
This is your debut novel. It's amazing. It's called The Friend Zone. Okay, yes.
It's so good.
I mean, I don't want to say anything about how long they stay friends before they get into it, but it's very funny. It's a very funny book.
He gets out.
Yeah, I mean, Well, we don't want to spoil it too much. And then, finally, at the end, you really need no introduction, but it's, that's right. Oh, wait, did I skip over somebody? Yes, I did. No, that's Jasmine. That's Jasmine Guillory, who we all know and love. Has an amazing, amazing little series going on. And is The Wedding Party the newest one?
It comes out in July.
It comes out in July. So it is. That's going to be the newest one. So cute and funny. But that's one of the things I want to talk about. So all these ladies' books are really, really, I mean, they are cute and funny. They're very sexy. But this is the thing that kind of, when I heard this was going to be called a rom-com, and I have to say I'm very old, all of you. I've been doing this for so long, and I'm so old. I was like, I'm like, rom-coms, because these are, they're fun, and they're funny, and they're sexy, but there's serious things that happen in these books. There's pathos, and in some cases, there's just, not that, like, there aren't brutal murders or anything, but, there's serious stuff. So I wanted to ask, my first question to you is, how do you feel about what you're writing being labeled as rom-coms? Do you think that that's the right thing for them to be called?
I think so. I mean, I think, I've always loved, we think about rom-com generally as a movie, and I've always loved romantic comedies in movies, but they also tackle important issues while they're, sweet and funny and have, happy romance. And I think lots of times in life, while we're going through something hard, there's also lots of really funny moments, and so I think it's nice to be able to have that blend in a book, and just to have something that is going to charm you and make you laugh.
Others of you can chime in. We don't have to.
So I wasn't setting out to write rom-coms with the dance-off series. They were very firmly in the contemporary romance genre, but I think there's been a lot of overlap and like blurring lines with that lately. My next series is I'm working on making it more rom-com. Although I will tell you, when I was working on my proposal, my agent's here, I sent her some backstory scenes for the idea I originally had, and she was like, Alexis, I know you said these were dark, but this is the absence of light. So I was like, I'm gonna start over. Try to make it funnier. But writing humor is, I think, hard. Like, it sometimes doesn't come out in the first draft. You kind of have to like go through and like find those little seeds of humor and like help them bloom. But I think there is a lot of overlap there with contemporary.
And I think it's easier when you're thinking about the reader. If you're thinking about the reader and you know that people want light and funny and happy right now, it makes it really easy to be like, yeah, I write romantic comedy, because that's what you want. That's what you want in these hard times, I think.
That actually leads me to my next question. Is that what you think that people are looking for right now? Why do you think there is this kind of craving and for those kinds of books, and why has there been this huge explosion in popularity?
I think we live in a meme culture where, we like this quick, witty, social media, relatable humor. And like personally, I think that's why people are gravitating towards rom-coms, because that's what we do every day. We're scrolling and we're looking at these cute memes and we're sharing them, and why wouldn't you want that in your book?
And why do you think we're looking for the funny?
Because
things?
it's the kind of humor that
I'm looking for a particular answer.
it's the
here.
kind of humor that millennials enjoy. Is the quick, witty, relatable humor.
I will say, in my apartment, we have the news on all the time.
Okay, finally someone.
And when, like, if my boyfriend is not home and I'm not working on something else, I'm like, I really just want to watch a rom-com on Netflix or something, right? They're having so many good ones lately, and it just makes me feel better.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think
it's a bit of a relief, There's so many difficult things going on, like in the global world, in your locality, in the United States right now, and sometimes it feels like there is nothing good in the world, and that's one of the reasons I read romance, is to remind myself, oh no, there are good things in the world. Like, there are good people fall in love, people make friends, like people can be happy, and that's what made me start reading romance, and that's one of the reasons that I love writing it.
That's great. Do any of you find it difficult to write these days with some of the things that are going on? Is it difficult?
Yes.
So how do you kind of put all that aside and then slip into these worlds? I'm just asking, not for a friend. I'm asking not for myself. I'm just wondering how you do it. All of you, I want each one of you to answer, because I'm, again, asking for a friend.
It's like escapism for me personally. It is hard to like put the internet down, put Twitter down, log out, and like not give strangers the power over you to make you angry or happy or sad, or just like let yourself be the own master of how you're feeling at the moment, and that's really difficult these days. But like I said, it is kind of like forced therapy, and I find like as a writer, I just have to like set timers and have like hourglasses on my desk and just like say, okay, for the next hour, I'm only thinking about this couple. Nothing else. None of the clickbait that's on the internet,
So you would never know this. I think a lot of my friends would be surprised if I told them this, because I hold it back, but I am really dismal. And I can get to that really bad place really quickly. And so sometimes I rush to my office and get in front of the computer because I need to get out like happy stuff. Because if I don't, I feel like I'm gonna, spend all of my time on the news, and that's not a good place to be.
For me, I feel like everyone has already said it well. It's really nice to just feel like there's a part of the world that's not a garbage fire. But also when I'm sitting down at my computer and I'm just making things that make me happy. Like, I'm putting in the stupid jokes that make me laugh and the stupid weird stuff that I know my editor is going to make me take out because it's too weird, but I'm doing it anyway because in that moment it makes me happy and it lets me forget what I've seen on the news or on Twitter or anywhere else. It's just my world to create and make it as happy and weird as I want it to be.
Yeah, I will say it is hard. Mia and I have like a private TM group with a few other authors, and we will sometimes like go there and like, you know, feel miserable about the stuff that's going on, and then we're like, okay, we've talked it out, we've processed together, and then we're saying, okay, we're gonna like go on Do Not Disturb and write for the next hour or something, because, you know, we're humans first, and we will connect on that level, but then also we're writers and we're friends, so that we'll say, okay, we can do this, let's just go and work for an hour or so, and then come back and see.
Yeah, I agree. There's times where I get on Twitter and it's like, I'm on there for 5 seconds, like, okay, that's enough for one day. You know, it's really hard being a woman right now, I think, this year especially. And, you know, romance is, for me, you know, primarily for women. So, you know, when I'm writing, I definitely need to get myself out of that headspace because it can be very negative. But in my books, my characters tend to look at the world, the real world, through a sarcastic and funny lens. So I feel like, you know, as I'm writing, I try and put that through in my work. My character is struggling with infertility. You know, so there's some very real, relatable issues happening in my book that I don't gloss over and that I just embrace and try and filter through that sarcastic and funny lens. And I think that's why a lot of people find my book, The Friend Zone, so relatable, because, you know, I don't gloss over those issues or pretend that they don't exist. But I'm still able to deliver it in a way that is hopeful and fun, and, you know, hopefully people who don't suffer from that can walk away and learn something from it.
For me, sometimes writing what I do is about like not letting the people in charge have power over me. I think that like it's a sort of don't let the bastards get you down thing. Like, I'm not going to let them take away my joy, right? Like writing. Like, I love writing. Writing is fun for me. I love writing about women of color, getting their happy endings, and I'm not gonna let like these people make me feel like I shouldn't do what I want to do, or like bring those stories to the rest of the world, right? I mean, I definitely think when I wrote The Proposal, which was my second book, you know, that I wrote that book in 2017, so that was a year. And that book came out very differently from when I wrote the proposal for it, which was in, you know, 2016, when I was feeling a little different about what would happen for the rest of the world. And so suddenly, somehow, what I did not intend was that there was a whole subplot about punching people. Wow, how did that happen? You know, but like, sometimes this little comes out in your writing, and it was fun to write.
You know, okay. Any of you jump in at any time if you have something you want to add. I want this to be a fun panel, since I'm moderating it. I'm fun. Okay. Going off on that, well, okay, so there were a few things that they promised we would talk about. I don't know if you read the little paragraph of what this was going to be on. I did, because I'm moderating it. So some of the things that they said they promised that we would talk about were what topics are hot in rom-coms these days. So we have to talk about that, because all these people want to know. Maybe some of them want to write some rom-coms of their own, or books, or or whatever. They are gonna want me back so many times to do this. So what have you found are hot topics? Those of you who have not, you know, who've had other books out. I mean, we know for Tessa it's cops. Doing all sorts of things they get fired for if they were in real life. No, I'm kidding. No, it's just sex. But like, what do you find have been really popular things that I guess have sold well, or just that you get a lot? Age. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Dating in the digital age.
There is
unlimited content for humor in dating in the digital age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I saw a tweet the other day that was something like, you know, so many writers of books right now who write contemporary books are trying to find ways for like texts not to go through and to people to lose battery power, and I'm like, I think the opposite. Like in romance, I think we're all thinking of like, how can text be funny, you know? Because I think there's so much there in like the way that people communicate now like things can be misunderstood, people can have weird fights, so many different things can happen that I think are just like so fun to write about that's going on right now. Or, you know, how people start dating, how like the relationships between people, it's all a lot of fun to write about.
Which emojis represent which important things in a
Yeah,
relationship.
exactly.
I mean, if you have dated in the digital age, raise your hand, right? So all of you have your own unique book to write now. You're ready.
Okay, that's all you're willing to admit at this point is, yeah. Okay, so that's one of the questions we were asked to ask about. Hang on, and I'm going to take questions from the audience too, so please think about your own questions that you want to ask. Another thing that I wanted to ask about myself personally is where do you see this genre going in the future? I know that none of you are psychic, well, some of you maybe, I don't know. But where do you see, I would like each of you to answer where you see this genre going in the future, but also for you personally, because I know some of you have other books coming out, and I think that everyone would like to hear about those. I'm sorry, that was me. Everyone would like to hear about your new books that are coming out, in case I didn't mention them in enough detail. So please, go on.
Where do we see the genre going?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I was going to add to the last question to say that like I think romantic comedies are so just hot right now because like the heroes tend to be like really non-threatening and kind of befuddled and like respectful. Weird. And they just tend to be, yeah, like it's kind of like a guaranteed, relaxed, comfortable experience, rom-coms. I feel like rom-coms eventually will expand to other genres, like kind of like will glip onto like other, is that a word? Glip? Like romantic comedy, paranormals. I don't know. I just think that people want a happy, good time, and I don't really care how they get there, you know? Is that crazy?
Moving on to...
Yeah, go on.
Where do I see the genre going? I think that, I hope, so, can we talk about hopes as opposed to
Oh my God, please do.
My hope is that we're going to see the genre really expand to be inclusive and to see the stories of people we don't necessarily see all the time. And I feel like a lot of times when we talk about rom-coms, people say, you know, it's been there, done that, what can you possibly do? Well, I want my story told, and other people want their story told. And even if you're using the same tropes, it's a different story, has a different flavor, gives you the things that are funny, can be different. And so I think that there's a whole other area to explore now. And I'd love to get to the point where we have classic movies, classic rom-com movies, Crazy Rich Asians, those kinds of movies where we're thinking about those as our favorite rom-coms as opposed to the same movies that we've heard about all the time. I'm not going to say Sleepless in Seattle.
Some Hallmark Christmas movies, too, that are in that vein would be good. Yes.
Can I just make my answer what Mia said?
Yes, you may.
I mean, as far as where the genre is going, I have no idea. I really hope it goes to the paranormal because that's where I'm sitting. And I really loved like those like Mary Janice Davidson books. Like, you know, I was super influenced by those. And the Katie McAllisters, you know, so I'm hoping we're seeing a push towards those in addition. Yeah, I just try to write what makes me happy and try not to worry too much about where it's going because no one knows.
Yeah, pretty much what Mia said in terms of a more inclusive genre. I also think, just to add to that, and I also want paranormal rom-coms, Molly Harper does those too, is I feel like they're getting sexier. And I think that that is part of that overlap with contemporary romance as well. And I'm thinking about The Kiss Quotient, which was really hot, like way hotter than I expected it to be based on the cover. I wasn't upset, but like I just wasn't expecting it. And then Tessa's upcoming book, I was at an event in in the DC area a few months ago, and they were talking about this book that has like a surprise scene in it that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about here, but that was, again, like way hotter than...
I can't even pinpoint the scene.
Anal.
Anal? I just said anal.
I forgot to turn the microphone. Yeah.
That's where the genre is going, apparently.
That's in that book, like, with the cartoon
What's hot
cover,
in
okay.
rom-coms?
So, that's where it seems to be going.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Tessa's book, Fix Her Up, because I just read that too, but I have a really hard time, like, dedicating my eyeballs to reading a paperback, so I, like, begged my editor, Leah, for an advance copy of the audiobook, which I got. And, you know, like, I'm thinking it's going to be, I've never read anything that Tessa's written. This is my first, and it's really good. You should totally read it. So, you know, I'm, like, thinking it's going to be, like, this, you know, cutesy, and it's got these really hot scenes in it. And I was like, if my headphones die, I'm going to have to jump on my phone like a grenade, because I have children here. But, yeah, I think that I really am enjoying the kind of romantic comedies that are coming out this year, because unlike, you know, the romantic comedies that we all grew up seeing, you know, like 2 Weeks Notice, or, you know, all those, they are sexy and they are steamy, and, you know, like The Friend Zone does touch on real life issues that happen to real women. And it's really exciting to see that development, you know, where, like, we're getting a little bit deeper, and we're not afraid to, you know, have a super hot sex scene with a main character with really amazing abs, like in Fix Her Up.
I also hope, and I think that the genre is going to a more inclusive place. I mean, look at, you know, the success of a number of the books that have come out recently, like Red, White, and Royal Blue, which just came out a few weeks ago. You know, and I think that, like, that's exciting to see that happening, and I hope we have more books about people in, like, you know, traditional man-woman, white man-woman relationships in books that are all sorts of different things. And so that's what I really hope happens. And I think, you know, seeing the success of that book and others that are about people of color and about people in all sorts of different relationships gives me a lot of hope for the genre.
I just want to see them on film, too.
And I think what Abby said about audio taking off, I think is really true. Like, I think all of the books I've finished this year have been in audio.
Yeah.
That's really, okay. All right, well, I think it's time maybe to take some questions from the audience. Is that okay with you guys? Does anyone in the audience have a question? And if you do, I think this mic might be on, and you might be able to walk up to it and talk into it, and then everyone can hear your question. And you won't be at all embarrassed by that, especially if you mention the A word, which we all hope you do.
Okay, well, I won't, but I was
do.
just wondering if, and like, I don't know, we kind of touched on it, but so like rom-coms and contemporary romance, I think people talk about them differently. At least by that I mean on the internet. Do you approach them differently? Do you like come to it thinking of something different, or is it sort of like, well, they're kind of the same thing?
I sort of feel like a lot of these categories are pretty, I mean, a lot of them are just sort of marketing words. And so, you know, when I set out to write a book, I was writing contemporary romance, and then people started calling it a rom-com, and I was like, yeah, sure, that works too. But I think, you know, I think there are lots of different ways that people, you know, sometimes people call it women's fiction. Okay, whatever. Like, to me, the important thing is, you know, it's a, like, book about two people falling in love, and also there's some funny stuff in it. And so if you want to call that any of those three words, like, any of those is great for me.
I don't approach it differently. I kind of laughing because Fix Her Up, it's like the same, it has cartoon characters on the cover, but the inside is just the book I've been writing for the last 6 years. I mean, like, not the same book, but it's the same steam level, and like, Target is gonna have it in there, and I'm like, joke's on you, Target. Same thing I've been doing the whole time.
Sorry, I'm a little short for this mic. So I actually have two questions, I'm sorry. First is, so So rom-com and romance in general has been seen as a woman's genre. Do you see that do you think it's starting to cross gender boundaries and that it's becoming more diverse in terms of readership? And 2, do you have a favorite romance written by a foreign author?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your second question. Can you say that again?
Do you have a favorite romance written by a foreign author, so non-US, so in a foreign language ideally?
Now, anyone wants to jump in?
Okay,
Go ahead. Okay. I will say that part of my writing process, I was on a critique site for authors called Critique Circle, and I was actually surprised at how many of my readers were actually male, like straight males. And because I do write in dual POVs, and I think it's a lot easier for a man to relate to a romance when a part of the book is actually written from a man's point of view. I think a lot of romances are written for women, and I think when you, give them that perspective, I do see it drawing a lot more men to the genre. And actually, my husband, who would never in a million years read a romantic comedy, actually really enjoyed mine because I would read it to him. I think it was eye-opening to him that this isn't entirely just for women. That there are things in there, and it's a relationship struggle. Men are in relationships. Why wouldn't they enjoy that?
For a romance written by someone who's not in the US, this is cheating a little bit, but my critique partner, C.L. Polk, wrote Witchmark, which is a fantasy with really strong romantic and mystery elements, and it's excellent. And then in terms of our men getting more into it, I think also just because some of this media is becoming far more mainstream, the movie that just came out, Always Be My Maybe, and stuff like To All the Boys, and the stuff that's on Netflix, it's there, it's easy to watch, and everybody's talking about it, and there are lots of men out there who are just interested in pop culture and want to consume that media as well and see what's up. I will say a bunch of my guy friends have read my books. They are always a little bit surprised at how sexy they are, but they, also enjoy the story.
I also think romance books, particularly rom-coms, are like the idiot's guide to dating. So if you tell men, pick up this book, you'll actually learn something, I think we'll get more men to start reading them.
I will say, I found out that my cousin was reading my book on the train and got 4 dates out of it. That's a great way for men to try to get into romance.
I just wanted to jump in and say I think we've had a long history of art that is made by and for women being less than. And I think we're starting, so romance novels, chick flicks, all those sort of women's fiction, whatever. And as we start to break that down, which I think we're doing slowly, I think more men will fold into the romance genre. And then I'm going to also cheat about the foreign author. I'm sorry. So I actually, on the train, I started reading this book called Teach Me by Olivia Dade. And she is from the US, but she currently lives in Sweden, so
That's mine too.
I think it counts. But it's so good. Everyone should read it.
And it just came out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Dive in.
But I feel bad. I don't know. Sonali Dev, is she first generation in the American? I just met her at KissCon, and so I'm not sure, but I think, anyways.
I think she was born in India.
She's born in India. Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors. I'm reading it right now, and it's so good. It's fantastic, and it feels like it just immerses you in the first chapter, and it's about a brain, a neurosurgeon is the heroine, which is what we need right now is to read about female neurosurgeons, and it's fantastic. So go pick it up. Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors.
So I'm from a family of 6 sisters. So I grew up in a house of rom-coms and 1930s screwball comedies, and we grew up with in the 90s of there was so many great Tom Hanks rom-coms basically in the 90s. So it's been really exciting for me to have this phenomenon of new rom-coms that my sisters and I have gotten together and watched together, and it's been fantastic. But I just wanted to know, since you mentioned that you love Sleepless in Seattle, which I do too, what your favorite 90s or before that rom-coms are that inspire you.
That's a good question. Everybody go down. Say what, if you have one, what your favorite is.
Legally Blonde.
Yes.
When Harry Met Sally.
I like 2 weeks' notice. Sandra Bullock and Hugh Grant. Great.
The Princess Bride.
I don't even know if this is one. Well, Sleepless in Seattle is my number one, but My Girl was one of my, and I don't even know if it counts as a romance because, spoiler alert, Thomas Jane dies. He stinks. It's terrible, but I feel like it was like a coming of age, like real kind of like YA romance before that was and it's spot in my heart.
Also, I'm sorry, we have to give a shout out to Mia Thermopolis. Right?
I was also going to say Legally Blonde, but since you guys mentioned Tom Hanks, I'll go with Splash.
Take it back.
Well, shut up. Okay. Next question.
Okay, for like those of you that write diverse characters in your stories, I was wondering if you feel like any additional pressure or anything to like not only write like more classic rom-coms with diverse characters, but you have to put in like an additional twist or something on it to like get it to fit, if that makes sense.
To expand, when you are writing characters who are maybe from a different background or culture, there is that pressure to put, or I feel it anyway, the pressure to put in markers that readers will understand as being like cultural markers. Like in my books that are out already, there's like some Spanish language, they're making Spanish, Puerto Rican food, they're talking about their families, which I think I would put in there anyway, but I do think about like what are the things that I can include in there. Because even if I didn't have any of that in there, I would still recognize it as like this character comes from a Puerto Rican family, just from the relationship she has with her mother, from the way that she approaches her work, from how she talks to her friends, all of that kind of stuff. But, you know, I know you get this, we've talked about it, but just also including those other things. And it pops up a lot in reviews where people are like, oh, I loved all the cultural touches, like that they made pernil or whatever they made in the book. And part of me is kind of like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do that, but also I get it, and it's part of writing it right now.
So I think for me, Alexis and I have talked about this a lot, but I got to the point where I just realized if I was writing my characters that that was kind of how it was going to flow anyway, because I very much put myself in sort of the head of the character, and so I'm like, what is this character going to do when they get home? They're going to make some food, and that food is likely going to be this, and so it kind of it flows, but I'm cognizant of it, and it's something that I think I enjoy sort of sharing that part of my background, and to the extent that people read it and they learn something, I think that that's great. But there is this sort of sense of like, if it's not there, why isn't it there?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I never go home and make Puerto Rican food just because I don't cook, and my boyfriend comments on it. He's like, how come you don't make stuff like arroz con leche? It's a lengthy process. But, I just think about that and including it in the book because, yeah, you do want to put that in there. It's just sometimes I wish I didn't have to think about that.
Right.
It's a good question.
Hi. So we touched on this a little earlier about making sure that you wanted to make your stories more relatable, not only to the certain audience, but also as to what's happening in the world today. My question is, in the process of making it relatable, where do you draw the line of where it becomes relatable or too controversial?
I don't really think about controversy so much in that I sort of think about it in, I don't want, I'm not writing I'm not a journalist, right? I'm not writing a story about what's happening in the world today. I'm also not, writing about my book is not an issue book. And that's not saying anything bad about issue books. I read a lot of them. I think they're great, but that's not what I'm writing. So I don't want, and I also don't want, if I'm bringing in something important, I know that my book, since my book is not going to be about that, I'm not going to be able to give it the detail that it warrants. So I don't want to bring in something too big for the amount of space I'll give it. So I do think about some stuff like that a lot, not in the is this too controversial way, but just in the is this too big of an issue for what I'm writing? And am I going to be able to give it justice?
I think for me, it's about making the character real to me. And so, as an example, in Crashing Into Her, my latest book, the hero is Puerto Rican. And so I felt there had to be a conversation about Hurricane Maria.
Yes.
And so that conversation is a conversation that you could imagine a Puerto Rican male in the United States having. It's not something that I think is a big stretch. And it isn't like a long conversation, but it is sort of acknowledging that this is an issue, that this is something that he would think about. And the important thing for me was it's a conversation that he has with the heroine. And it's clear during that conversation that they're on the same page. And to me, when you're building the arc and you're trying to convince the reader that these two deserve a happily ever after, you need to see that. You need to see that these two are going to make it because they're on the same page in terms of those kinds of things.
Yeah, my next book that I'm working on now is set in a world where Hurricane Maria has happened. And the hero was born in Puerto Rico and his family was living there, so it gets brought up.
Thank you. All right, we have a few. Oh, you want to go?
Oh, no,
go ahead.
It's only short. I tend to not breach any controversy or any kind of controversial topics, but I do write the occasional male book, and just the existence of that alone is kind of controversial. And I just go and I talk about it. I talk about why the people around them react the way they do, and so yeah, I guess that would be the one place I go. I generally tend to not.
Understandable. All right, so we have time just for these last two questions, so a lot of pressure. Make them good. All eyes are on you.
It wasn't scary before now.
That's my job, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit too tall for this microphone. I love what you guys were saying about how rom-coms bring happiness, and I think it's very true, and I think we need more and more happiness with everything that's going on right now. So I guess, what are the stories, archetypes, tropes that you guys look for again and again that make you happy, is I guess what I'm asking.
I love an arranged marriage. My favorite.
I also love an arranged marriage. I have been super into lately hate to love books. I think it's something about how everyone seems to hate each other now, but there is this little bit of hope that we can find love. So.
Friends to lovers.
Yeah. I like enemies to lovers. When it's done well, it's really great.
I'm a sucker for a second chance romance.
Aw, yeah.
Older brother's best friend.
Yeah.
Yes. All good.
What you
All good.
Thank you.
Very, very nice. Second to last question. Okay.
All right. Is there a temptation, right? Because we are talking about romantic comedies here, and I'd like to focus on the comedy part of that genre here. How do you guys balance the comedy with the romance, and or have you ever written like something romantic and said, hey, this could be flat out funny, and then make it into a farce if you feel it's good, or how do you rein that in? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just sort of balance.
I'll start with this one because this is a problem I have in my writing, which is that I tend to so let's start here. Good comedy is grounded, right? Mm-hmm. If everything is just off the wall, and there's no sort of voice of reason there to ground, it's not funny. Everything just becomes way off the wall crazy, and I know this because that's what usually happens to me, and my editor has to go back and be like, okay, well, not everything can be that weird. We have to have some normalcy in here. So I think that is a good way to balance those things, because the funny isn't all that funny unless you have the groundedness to it. And this kind of goes back to what you're talking about with adding in some sort of deeper issues in our books. If you think about comedy, I do a lot of comedy actually in my life, not writing, so I do a lot of reading about why are things funny.
You do stand-up?
I'm sorry, what?
You do stand-up?
I don't. I do improv. I've done improv for about 5 years, and I do some sketch writing. But I can't remember. But so if you're if you're thinking about comedy, you have a sort of a roller coaster, right? So things get sort of normal, and then if you have like a very, very serious scene, then when the funny thing hits, it's even funnier because it's so unexpected, and being unexpected is one of the things that makes people laugh.
I think it's also about thinking about the tension in the story and how that plays out with the romance. I tend to ruin a lot of sexual tension or mood in my books with humor, like at inappropriate times. Like I'll be writing and it'll be in the middle of a sex scene and one of them will say something and then the other one will say like something completely inappropriate that I think is hilarious, and I'm like, okay, but now I've just ruined the scene that I spent 2 chapters building up to, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to take that out. Like, okay. So it's, I think if I'm trying to write funny, it doesn't always come out that way, but if I just kind of let myself go, it'll sneak its way in there, and then sometimes I have to take it out.
But also funny is sexy. I just think it's really easy to layer in banter. When two people have really great banter and they're just kind of like working off each other, it's like that can be really hot. So I think that's an easy way to work it in.
All right, well, we have time for closing comments if anyone cares to make them, unless you're going to make me make them. In closing.
Thank you for coming.
I know. Well, I just think we've had such a nice chat today, and I've run out of questions.
That's a good one.
Anybody else?
Yeah, why don't we? That's what I tried to get you guys to tell earlier. So this.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah.
Everyone go down and say, what is your next book or your book that's in stores now? What can people go out and look forward to from you?
Before I tell you about mine, I just want to recommend The Friend Zone one more time by Abby Jiminez. It's so good. It's her debut book, and I couldn't put it down. It comes out on the same day as mine, June 11th, which is Fix Her Up. It's a best friend's little sister trope. It's a fake dating book. He's like an ex-athlete who needs his image to be improved so he can get a commentator position. She's the town sweetheart who wants to be seen as a woman. So they were like, all right, let's date. Let's shake things up. You get your good guy image. I get my bad girl image. And it's a hilarity ensues. It's really funny. So Fix Her Up is June 11th. Yeah.
Very nice. Good job.
So I've talked a little bit about the book that's out now, but the next book that I'm really excited about is called The Worst Best Man. Oh, you guys. Okay, so the cover, I've seen the cover. It is fantastic, but oh my gosh, it's just like that. It's like the cover is all so cutesy, but inside, oh my gosh. But it's, if you can tell from the title, it's enemies to lovers. Oh no, one bed. A little bit of fake dating. There's just like a whole lot of stuff. But it's basically the heroine is a wedding planner, jilted at the altar, and she has to work with the worst best man, who is her the ex-fiance's brother, and they cannot stand each other.
When does it come out?
Oh, that one's February 2020, so it's a little bit.
Go wait.
For me, so Crazy Cupid Love came out in January, and I love you in the front making the thumbs up. You made my life. So that came out in January, and then there will be a second book in this series, and I'm looking at my publicist in the back. What am I allowed to say? So yeah, I'll just say it. I believe the title. Go for it. I believe the title is going to be called A Shot to the Heart, and it's another Cupid book, and it is enemies to lovers, competing Cupid firms. A Cupid firm, and if you don't know what my books are about, it's Greek gods are living among us, and there are Cupids, and you can hire them to make people fall in love with you. So there's a family Cupid firm, and there's like a big box store like Cupid firm who comes into town, and they're competing, and the owners of each fall in love. So, and I think that will be out around this time next year.
Okay, I've been given the 1 minute. So
Okay,
go fast.
So I've got my dance-off series out right now. There's 3 books so far. Eventually I'll put out some more. My next book is I haven't turned it in yet, so I don't know when it's coming out. Maybe sometime next year. It's with Avon. It will probably be called The Rebound. That's what it's called right now. And it's about two actors on a show together, and the whole show hinges on their chemistry, and they have terrible on-screen chemistry. So they have to like figure that out. It's good.
Friend Zone is out June 11th. It is a rom-com about a young woman who is having a medically necessary partial hysterectomy. And this poor woman does not make it out of the book with her uterus. So it is, it's definitely something that we don't see a lot of in romance, and it is available for pre-order right now.
The Wedding Party comes out July 16th. It is about two of Alexa's best friends from Wedding Date. They have always hated each other, but they are both in her wedding party and have to figure out a way to get along, and then they accidentally have sex. And then I also have a book coming out in October called Royal Holiday. It is about the heroine's mom from the wedding party. They go to England and she falls in love with someone who works for the Queen.
Woo, you guys, thank you so much. You were the best.